Hey guys, Karen here, and welcome back to my channel today. Once again, I am here to show you guys how a certain weapon type has changed over the entire life cycle of Destiny. If you guys missed the first episode, we actually took a look at hand cannons and how they have changed over the entirety of Destiny, so if you're interested in that, you can find a link in the description below. But in this video, we are actually going to be looking at the weapons that are often subject to multiple jokes in the Destiny community, the fusion rifles. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the first update that affected fusion rifles was the one that came with the launch of Destiny, or update 1.0.1. The only change that this update made was that fusion rifles now had a more reliable charging. Now, I'm not sure whether this is referring to the consistency of the time it is required to charge or the animation itself. That was not clarified, but I imagine it has something to do with the actual physical process of it charging rather than just the animation based on how it's worded. However, this is a great time to point out how vague Bungie can be with their patch notes. We weren't given a specific example or value here, and because of that, we weren't able to draw an accurate conclusion. Now, I will do my best to represent the overall changes, but for a lot of these things, we don't have exact values and thus have to use our best assumptions, so just keep that in mind as we're going through it. Next came update 1.1.1, which widened the blast pattern of the projectiles which they took within the burst cone of the fusion rifle. So that is a lot of words, but essentially that just means that the projectiles within a burst are now less accurate and a little bit more unpredictable. In addition, this update also reduced the amount of ammo that you start with when you spawn into PvP. Then came the first major hit to fusion rifles with the Taken King in update 2.0. To start this off, projectiles in the burst no longer became more accurate with each one fired. For instance, before this patch, the fourth projectile would be more accurate than the third, and then that was more accurate than the second, and so on. So with this change, it just made the burst a little bit more unpredictable. In addition, the max projectile speed was decreased slightly, which once again impacted the ability to get quick kills. Then there were some changes to specific archetypes. So the slow changing fusion rifles got a slight nerf to base range stats, high range fusion rifles caught a nerf to their accuracy, and finally low range fusion rifles actually had their accuracy increased. And then to wrap up this entire thing, all fusion rifles got a flat 15% damage buff within PvE activities. Soon after this came update 2.1, which once again impacted the viability of fusion rifles. This update reduced the stability of fusion rifles while firing from the hip. However, to balance this change out, it actually increased your stability while aiming down sight or crouching. These changes seem to strongly encourage lining up a shot and then taking a bit more time to fire at an enemy rather than just turning around and firing from the hip. Then the amount of ammo you could carry in your inventory was reduced. Next, fast charging fusion rifles got both a buff and a nerf. The charge speed for these fusion rifles was increased, but the damage done per burst was reduced. And finally, all fusion rifles received another 10% increase to PvE damage. So it is important to note that this does increase with the 15% that we got last time, but it does not equal 25%. So what would have happened is that the 15% bonus damage would have been calculated in, and then another 10% of that overall value would have been added in with this update. The next update was update 2.2, which increased the base stability of all fusion rifle stats by 40% of their original values. And finally, the last change that heavily affected fusion rifles wasn't actually a direct nerf, but rather a side effect of other specials getting nerfed. So this came with update 2.5.0.2, which brought the change to special ammo, which made you lose all of it upon death. So essentially, because snipers and shotguns were so prevalent within Crucible, fusion rifles got hit as well. So surprisingly, those are all of the changes to fusion rifles. There's not nearly as many as there were to hand cannons, but they seem to have had an even bigger impact. So in the end, we can calculate the final buffs and nerfs. The final buffs being that charging is more reliable, 15% and then 10% extra PvE damage was added. Next, the stability while crouched or aimed down sight was increased, and the base stability stat was increased by 40% based on their original value. Finally, low-range fusion rifles had an accuracy increase, and fast-charging fusion rifles received an increased charge speed. And finally, on the other side, the final nerfs to fusion rifles were that they now had a wider burst cone, less starting ammo in PvP, and the burst no longer got more accurate with each additional projectile. Furthermore, the maximum projectile speed was reduced, and the stability while hip firing and the amount of ammo you could hold in your inventory was also reduced. Finally, slow charging fusions had a nerf to their base range, fast charging fusion rifles received less burst damage, and high range fusion rifles got a nerf to accuracy. And then there is also the whole thing where you lose your ammo on death. So as you guys can see, the changes completely changed how fusion rifles were being able to be used. A lot of the buffs seem to be based on increasing stability of fusion rifles. However, the nerfs at first glance seem to be all over the place. However, if you take a look at the purpose behind the nerfs, they all seem to have one common goal, and this seems to be to reduce the reliability of a quick one-shot ranged kill with a fusion rifle. Now, with the burst being widened, the projectiles traveling more slowly, and the accuracy being reduced, one-shot kills aren't going to be as frequent. In addition, the fast-charging fusion rifles received a nerf to damage, which means that they now need 5 bolts to kill an enemy, rather than the slow-charging archetype's 4 bolts to kill an enemy. And this is the exact reason why fusions like Saladin's Vigil and the 77 Wizard are so sought after within the Crucible. They have high impact, high enough in fact, to kill things in 4 bolts instead of 5, while maintaining a great range stat. All of this comes together to make them really the only archetype to provide consistent one-hit kills within the Crucible. So yeah, now that you've seen the complete evolution of fusion rifles over the past 3 years, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm extremely interested to see how you guys will react to all of this data being pulled together. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating and share this video with your friends. Don't forget guys, I am doing my giveaway for 4,000 subscribers. I will leave that link down in the description below. If you are interested, you can win an Age of Triumph shirt, an Eye of Eternity emblem, and a Destiny 2 beta code. If you are interested in seeing the video on the screen, you can click the annotation to be taken to it. Finally, subscribe for more awesome Destiny content, and I'll see you guys in my next video.